economic parity. The problem is that the banking institutions and the millionaire senators are upset that poor people have finally found their voice. What nerve do you have to be able to speak truth to power? How dare you protest when you need us? We have deluded ourselves. Corporate America is saying that we are too big to fail. Did you forget that we were bailed out while you were left in foreclosures? And what was supposed to just be a solemn assembly in New York City has now spread and spawned to 100 cities and 56 countries across the world, because poverty has not in fact been localized, it has been globalized. The clips on the news, ladies and gentlemen, are in fact a skewed perspective. Because in case you don't realize, the news is no longer an independent thinking agency that gives a non-biased approach to what is taking place, but they are representatives of a larger structure that is in fact are proselytizing what they believe. Hence, Fox News does not in fact give the news. It is just a station against Barack Obama. You understand then, ladies and gentlemen, that you are in a critical place when your news source only comes from one place. The Baltimore Sun has been able to cruise control without even giving balance to a community that is 72% black and by and large blue collar. It is in fact feeding as the overflow of Washington, D.C., telling us what we should believe, what we should support, and what we should stand for. But whenever, ladies and gentlemen, there is a revolution arise, it is never supported by the system or the media. It is always pushed by people at a grassroots level who understand in order for me to stand, I don't need an endorsement, I need a cause. And for this cause, ladies and gentlemen, we have assembled in this hour. Just last week, Time magazine, one of the nation's leading periodicals, who ordinarily salutes and celebrates somebody for unmerited sacrifice, usually lauds somebody as the person of the year for making a contribution to help shift the community and the society. But this year, much to the amazement of so many, Time magazine said that this year, the year 2011, the person of the year is the person who is a protester. The person who in fact will use their voice and stand for what they believe in. From Egypt, Tunisia, to now Oakland, and now even in Baltimore, the people who are going to make a difference are not people who will remain silent. But the people who are going to make a difference and change the world are going to be the people who will be unbought, unbossed, and uncompromised. And I'm so thankful unto God that Time magazine doesn't even understand that there are some protesters who haven't even been in front of the camera. There are some protesters who have not been outside of Wall Street and did not camp under a tent, but every time they came into the house of the Lord, they refused to remain silent, but they began to lift up their voice, believing that when the praises go up, that's when the blessings will come down. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let me say to you, those of you who are silent in the face of injustice, you are in fact disqualified from calling yourself a Christian. Those of you who will not use your voice whenever there is evil in the face of children, you are in fact a scourge on the earth. Any person who has deluded themselves into a middle-class lifestyle, thinking that you're in the 1% just because you got an American Express and you've moved to the suburbs. The reality is, as long as somebody in your family has got to figure out about how they're going to live if they miss one paycheck. You, my friend, are a part of the struggle. Please don't delude yourself. Those who are protesting are not vagrant. They are not absent of conscience or mind. But the people who have decided to make a stand are people who are articulate, are educated, who are focused, who have passion, who have drive. Please don't let the media fool you into believing that the people who are protesting are homeless. They are people who are trying to hold on to their homes. They are not people who don't have a job, but people who have a work ethic, who have a strong mind, but have been robbed of an opportunity. And woe to the church, particularly the black church, who was last seen in a protest structure during the sit-ins. But since 1968 to now 2011, the voice of the black church has contracted laryngitis, where we are no longer speaking to systems and to structures and to policies. We are now speaking to personal aggrandizement and self-fulfillment and individual achievement, when the original intention of the gospel is not that I might be a success, but that my entire community may be able to rise to another place. The role and the responsibility of the black church that has historically been the invisible institution was to take people from a place of rejection and take people from a place of oppression, not to the opulence of capitalism, but into a place where they will in fact be world changers and history makers. It was in the black church that children were taught how to stand up and speak in public without a crib sheet in their hand. It was in the black church that they learned how to say no ma'am and yes sir. It was in the black church that they learned how to conduct business meetings and pull their pants up and have a belt around their waist. It was in the black church that they learned how to sing on key and not begin to mirror what they heard on the radio. It was in the black church that they understood about the economic systems and the political structures that were forged to keep them incarcerated. And out of that black church, 118 historically black colleges and universities were founded in the black church. But now when you come in the black church, all you hear about is Mercedes-Benz and being debt-free and being a millionaire. Somehow we have dropped the baton and dropped the mantle of Dr. King. But as of this moment, ladies and gentlemen, the position has changed, that we can no longer sit down, but we have got to stand up and let America know, if God be for us, who in the world can be against us? I marvel at the resilience of those who stood before us in the face of barking dogs and fire hoses, and under the imminent threat of their houses being burned and a cross in their front lawn and their husbands being lynched from sycamore trees like strange fruit. But you were scared to just go downtown and tell a black mayor and a black president of a city council, please don't incarcerate our children. The church can't sit down. They have got to learn to take a stand. But we can't do that if our position does not change. Flying from India 2 years ago, I had the incredible opportunity to go and preach in India. And on that 23-hour flight, I'll never forget that in the 9th hour, the airline flight attendant made the announcement, please don't remain seated. If you remain seated during the entire flight, your joints will become sore. Your blood will not be able to flow. Your equilibrium will be thrown off because you stayed in the same position too long. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been sitting down since 1968, and I am afraid the blood hasn't been circulating. Our joints have become sore. We have not begun to keep our focus and our vision. But God is in fact waking up the sleeping giant in America called the church, saying, I need you to preach more about how to be happy. I need you to preach something more than how to be a business success. I need you to preach something that will in fact make comfortable people uncomfortable and make the uncomfortable comfortable. I need the church to recognize that it is not about what you can buy and not about what it is that you have, but what it is that you can give. You ought to live so that your children will live a better life than the one that you have inherited, because they'll look up and say, there was a generation that refused to back up. There was a generation that refused to hold their tongue. But here was a generation that would open up their mouth and say to anybody that will listen, if in fact you abuse the children, the poor, the widow, and the weak, then the blood is on your hand. And while I'm here, I might as well tell you, Bull Connor is dead, but there is a new sheriff named Newt Gingrich who is rising. And if in fact we don't wake up and begin to take a stand, that country hillbilly from Georgia will in fact ride America backwards into a place we are not supposed to be in if the black church does not stand up. So Elijah, ladies and gentlemen, has a problem. And his problem is that he has just had a victory. He just had a victory because he had to expose false prophets. And when he exposed the false prophets, they set out in their minds to kill him. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever it is that you expose that which is evil, whenever you expose that which is greedy, whenever you expose that which is in fact an albatross around the neck of your people, expect an attack to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say something to you. Please hear me. There is never achievement without an assault. Let me give it to you again. There is never an achievement without an assault. If you have not achieved anything, nobody is after you. But as soon as you are able to cross a hurdle, that's when the enemy gets nervous and antsy. The reason why some of you are not under attack is because you're not doing anything. But the moment you make up in your mind, I refuse to be a part of the status quo, I refuse to be the enemy called average, I refuse to go along to get along, that's when the attack begins on your life. And Elijah had a victory because he exposed all of the false prophets. And when he had done so, a woman by the name of Jezebel, which is the spirit of manipulation, says that within the next 24 hours, you will not be able to survive. Ladies and gentlemen, African Americans 3 years ago had a victory when we saw the first African American president ascend to office. Our grandparents never thought it would happen in their lifetime. But here we are marching under the banner of a general commander-in-chief who America doesn't know how to handle, because for the first time in a long time we've got a president who stands by his word. He said that there would be health care, and he's given it. He said that the war would be over, and it is. He said that our troops would be coming home, and they are. He said that he was going to catch every terrorist, and he has. I don't understand how America is in a coma. If in fact he was a white man, there'd be a parade right now. But because he looks like somebody else, the opposition has intensified. And so we are in a place, ladies and gentlemen, 9 years later. 9 years later, after an illegal war was started that was in fact hedged at the best interests of energy corporations and gas companies and Halliburton. Y'all not talking back to me. An illegal war in which they coached Colin Powell to be able to lie to the UN, because 9 years later they still have not found weapons of mass destruction. We have lost, ladies and gentlemen, over 100,000 of our sons and daughters in the sands of the Middle East for no reason whatsoever. But aren't you glad that those are not the only troops? But there are some troops that are getting ready to rise up who are able to understand, listen, we didn't say nothing when y'all stole $10 billion from the Middle East. We didn't say anything when you took all of the natural resources of oil and gold and petroleum out of Africa. We didn't say anything when it is that you begin to build up prison multiplexes and privatize them to keep our sons in jail. We didn't say anything when it is that you put Troy Davis to death the 10 jurors have recanted their testimony. We didn't say anything, but now you mean to tell me y'all gonna take America back? The devil is a liar. Ain't no way in the world I'm going back to where it is it used to be. And Elijah, being a black preacher operating in liberation theology, operated in the only way he knew how when the assault was unleashed. The Bible says that